Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, stuff like that. And welcome to a brand new week, guys. May it be filled with glorious victory and triumph for you from now till Friday, and then a glorious weekend ahead. And we're talking about all things glorious. We are, of course, joined by the glorious one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett today. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, it truly is a glory. You know, when you say glorious, though, I think about Kor, the first Klingon introduced in Star Trek's Errand of Mercy from the first season. And when he said glorious at the end of the episode, he said, glorious.
Nobody says glorious like a Klingon. I mean, there's just something cooler about the way things come out of Klingons' mouths. Hey, guys, listen. We do have a whole bunch of good stuff that we're going to talk about here today, including, it looks like we've got 2 new Witchers joining The Witcher Season 2. We know somebody who's appearing in Mandalorian Season 2. Actually, she already kind of shot her episode that she's in. Can and should Suicide Squad actually be rated R? We're going to get into that. Also, Parasite makes an unprecedented jump in the box office. And of course, Sonic comes out and does very well in its opening weekend. We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we get to any of that stuff, we're going to go over some things off the top. And we do have a couple of things here to talk about off the top. And the first thing is going to be this. Rob, I don't know if you've heard this, but there is a brand new James Bond movie coming out. I'm not sure if you were aware of that.
Are you kidding me?
No, they very quietly went about and shot a new James Bond movie. Daniel Craig is even coming back in it.
Wow.
Ooh, the excitement. Well, listen, one of the countries, if you're in, you are going to lose out on some of the Bond goodness, as it is being reported right now over on Variety that apparently the Chinese premiere and the big press tour for No Time to Die in China has been canceled as a result over concerns of the coronavirus. Rob, I still hear and see some people today claiming that the Chinese government has been overacting. We know that a lot of stuff has been shut down, a lot of filming has been shut down, a lot of theaters have been shut down over concerns, and now this is the latest thing to kind of get postponed or bumped as a result. But at the end of the day, I mean, listen, we're fanatical fans of movies, but at the end of the day, it's just a movie. And if they've got some health concerns and they want to err on the side of caution when it comes to public health, I think it's a fine movie. Look, it totally sucks if you're a Chinese movie fan and you've been really looking forward to No Time to Die. But you know what? It's not going to disappear. It'll still be there. So it is kind of unfortunate that this is happening. They're not going to get that press tour, that premiere out there. I'm sure it probably would have been fantastic. But all the things being equal, it's probably a pretty smart move, and I think it's completely understandable. Rob, you look at this. How do you feel about it?
Well, you know, over 1,000 people have died from coronavirus. And so I would say that a press junket is never a time to die. So why would they look, they're erring on the side of caution, as anybody should. And there's still, you know, they released those Americans from that quarantine cruise ship, and 14 of them have coronavirus.
Yeah, something like that.
It's an insidious influenza. And I think that, look, you know, these emergent, we're going to have more and more of these emergent flus and diseases, whether it comes from food supply or whether it comes from deforestation, or it's always best to err on the side of caution for these things. And I think, you know, I have no problem with anybody erring on the side of caution.
Yeah, again, it's a movie. It's a movie. They're not canceling Christmas. It's a movie, so I'm okay with it. Question is, guys, how do you feel about it? Do you think this is an overreaction? Do you think, yeah, it's just a movie, err on the side of caution? How are you feeling about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. Next thing off the top is this. Rob, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a Venom 2 coming. Yes, on top of a Bond movie, there's a Venom 2 coming. Andy Serkis is, of course, directing it. We've got Tom Hardy is back, a few other people, including Woody Harrelson. Now, this is interesting. Tom Hardy, because remember, they recently started shooting Venom 2. It's supposed to come out in October of this year, so it's about 8 months away right now. I'm just waiting for the questions to start coming in. John, where's the Venom trailer? It's 8 months out. But Tom Hardy has apparently taken to his social media, as he often does, and he has released the first look at Woody Harrelson playing Cletus Cassidy, of course. That's the one thing that everybody's got really, really excited about it, seeing Carnage in there. And he just simply wrote, "Hello, Cletus." Of course, we got him not in prison. I believe that's kind of like it looks like he's got like a skull or something around his necklace in the Hawaiian shirt. Again, nothing too revealing at this point. And in the era of giant blockbusters, in the last couple of years, we as audiences have become accustomed to seeing like a leak or a trailer or posters by the time it's 8 months out. But in the last year or two, we've been seeing a very good move in Hollywood to shorten that stuff. So this is kind of a little bit early. Rob, what do you think about the first of kind of thing from the set of the movie that we're getting is on Tom Hardy's social media page? What do you think about it? Are you excited for Woody Harrelson playing Cletus? I'll tell you what, I'm excited for it. But I did not care for the post-credit scene in the first Venom. I thought that was just way too cheesy. But I think this is a match that can work really well. How are you feeling about it?
I want that shirt. Where can I buy that shirt? No, I think this is a we used to have viral marketing. There was all these clever things they would do for 4 or 5 years ago, and they kind of abandoned that. And I think now it's kind of a stealth bit of marketing when you have the lead actor in whatever movie you're making, releasing the first look. It just gets more traction. It doesn't seem as obvious as marketing. And it seems like the actor himself or herself is enthusiastic about sharing their co-stars. So I think it's a sly way to get excitement to start to percolate about Venom 2. I mean, I've got a Carnage action figure right to the left of me, and I can't wait to, kind of like Ghidorah and Godzilla going at it. I can't wait to see Venom and Carnage fight.
And listen,
I can't wait, dude.
There are some people who are saying that maybe it's a little too early, like just the second movie is too early to bring in Carnage. I think that's nonsense. Bring him in now. It's perfectly fine that you do it. And it's perfectly fine if it's R. It's perfectly fine if it's PG-13 because, I mean, it is what it is. But again, for me, Rob, kind of goes back to that word tangibilization. Actually seeing an image from the set to me just kind of makes it more real, that it is shooting, it is happening, it is coming, and I'm pretty excited about it. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this picture that Tom Hardy put up? I mean, it's not much, but it is the first official thing that we've seen. How are you feeling about Venom 2 overall? Are you excited for the movie? Do you not care? Did you love the first one? Did you not care for it? I really like the first Venom movie. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. One more thing off the top that we're going to cover here, and that is this. Rob, I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's an Uncharted movie coming.
Oh, now, you know what? I don't believe you. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I can't blame you for not believing me because they've been talking about an Uncharted movie forever, going all the way back to the day that Marky Mark of his Funky Bunch was supposed to star as Nathan Drake in it. You remember that?
Wow.
Remember Mark Wahlberg? I mean, remember he was supposed to be the star of that movie ages and ages and ages ago? Then, a big dry period, and then a while ago we heard, I always mispronounce Dan's last name, Trachtenberg. I always pronounce Dan's last name. So he comes on to direct. Ultimately, he leaves over the dreaded creative differences. Then the glorious news comes. Travis Knight, director of Kubo and the Two Strings and the wonderful Bumblebee movie, comes on board to direct. Well, then they lose him because they needed to bump the production start date of Uncharted. That didn't work for Travis Knight's schedule, and he's gone, and we still don't have a director for the film. There are whispers going around that what's the name of the guy again who directed the first Venom film? And he directed 30 Minutes or Less as well. And I'm freezing on his name. But the guy who directed the first Venom film, there are whispers going around that he may end up directing Uncharted. But those are unfounded at this point, so we don't really know. But apparently they keep saying that they are moving forward and this is actually going to happen. Well, as a little interesting side note to that, Tom Hardy spoke up, or Tom Holland, I should say. We were just talking about Tom Hardy. Tom Holland decided to come out, and he was just revealing in an interview that he has just read the latest incarnation of the script of Uncharted, and he says it is one of the best scripts that he has ever read. Now, granted, Tom Holland is 8 years old. Well, he's not 8 years old, but he's younger. He's younger. But he did write this. He said, I read the newest draft of the script on the way over here, and it is one of the best scripts I've ever read. It really, really jumps off the page. Now, on the one hand, well, this is the star of a potential upcoming movie. What else is he supposed to say about the script to his upcoming movie? What's he going to do? Yeah, I read the script of this movie I'm doing this next year. Yeah, it's not very good. I mean, what's he supposed to say? Of course he's going to say it's good. But at the same time, if Tom Holland is going to come out and say anything about the Uncharted script, you'd rather hear that it's positive. I mean, so I'm going to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. I don't have any reason to doubt that it's one of the best scripts that he's ever read. Okay, if he feels that way, that's great. That doesn't mean you're going to feel that way. That doesn't mean I'm going to feel that way. But it's fine that he feels that way. And hey, listen, in the world of is that good news or bad news, you got to mark it down as being good news. So I'm going to put this down, Rob, as a positive thing to hear. I think it is a positive turn to hear that Tom Holland, not only that the script exists, but that Tom Holland has actually got his hands on it. He's read it. He's excited about it. He thinks it's one of the best things he's ever read. Again, I understand you got to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. I get that. But still, in the world of good or bad news, I think that's good news. Rob, you hear Tom Holland say this. Number one, big picture. Do you actually believe this movie's going to happen? I do at this point, but do you think it's actually going to happen at this point? And what do you think of Tom Holland's reaction to reading the script?
Well, one, I think it will happen. I mean, it's it's been in development long enough. They spent enough money developing this. They've got to get some money back. So it'll probably happen. And look, I think.
And a side note, remember how I mentioned Mark Wahlberg was attached to play Drake? He's attached again. Only this time he's playing the Sully character. So he's attached to star with Tom Holland, which I think is an interesting kind of turn.
Yeah. Look, I was hoping the Uncharted franchise is one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. And look, to be honest, I was hoping I would get a cast that was a little bit older, like Sully would maybe be in his 50s and Nathan would be in his 30s or maybe late 20s. And like you said, Tom Holland's, for my money, a little young for the part. But I really like Tom Holland as a performer. And I've certainly enjoyed his turn as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And I think that if this is done well and handled correctly, I think it could be, a pretty great movie. If it's done well. And again, if Tom Holland likes the script, I mean, look, whenever a lead actor comes out and says, this is the best script I've read, I always take that with a grain of salt. All actors want to believe that. They're getting paid to do it. Nobody wants to be in a bad movie. I'm sure Michael Fassbender was like, boy, Assassin's Creed, the finest screenplay I've ever read in my life. And sometimes these things don't turn out for the best, John. But my fingers are crossed. I love this franchise. I want it to be good. Let's hope. Let's hope.
Hey, listen, I still have high hopes for it. I really do. I really like the direction they're going. I know there are still a lot of people that are still upset that they're going with a younger Nathan Drake. That's fine. But I think if you get past that and you just look at how this is coming together as a movie, I think there's a lot of things to be enthusiastic about. Now, that doesn't mean the movie is going to be good. It could end up being a big bag of crap, but I think there's a lot of reasons here to be optimistic. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about this? Tom Holland is saying he thinks this is one of the best scripts he's ever read. Maybe the extra time has helped it out. Maybe you don't believe it one little bit. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with the main topics by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. And then hit submit. And then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question selected as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Jeremy, who writes, I am sitting here waiting for Sonic to begin and just read that it's going to dominate the box office this weekend with $57 million. Not bad for a movie that had some negative press and pushed back the release date. What are the chances this was the plan all along? Get people talking about the movie with a poor design and push the movie to a holiday weekend. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, for those of you who may have missed it or did not hear, Sonic has come out and it has done, for a video game movie, very well. It's done very well for a video game movie making $57 million. Now listen, I know we live in a day and age when we're used to a big movie opening and it makes $200 million. Don't let that distract you from the fact that for most other movies, an opening like $57 million is pretty damn solid. So let's take a look here at the quick opening weekend here. Coming in first place was Sonic the Hedgehog, making $57 million. Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey dropped less than 50%. Less than a 50% drop, down to $17 million. But again, the smaller you open, the easier it is to have a smaller second weekend drop off. So that doesn't say a lot much, but Harley Quinn did make another $17 million. Fantasy Island, I have no idea, Rob, how Fantasy Island ended up making $12.4 million. How did a movie with no marketing, and they didn't even lift the review embargo until after the movie opened, like a full day after the movie opened in theaters, they lifted the review embargo. How on earth did that movie make? I think $12.4 million is remarkable. I would have guessed it was going to make $6. Would have been my guess, maybe $6, but it ended up making 12.4, and I have no idea how. The Photograph came in and bowed in with 12.2 million, and Bad Boys for Life hanging in there, man. It made another $11.3 million this weekend. But of course, the story for us right now is Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic taking in the money that it has. There's an interesting kind of angle to this that I'll talk about here, but I don't want to go into it too much. Jeremy is asking, what do you think the chances are that this was all part of a scheme on the part of the studio? This whole, design controversy and all that kind of stuff. Now, I heard some people, Rob, I even referenced them on the show a week or two ago. There were these insane tinfoil hat wearing lunatics suggesting this was all premeditated by the studio. They purposefully put out a trailer with a design that they knew people wouldn't like, and did that on purpose in order to get everybody talking about the movie, to only then later bring out the design they were planning on using all along, and then to move the release date from November, which, by the way, Forbes has a great article on this about how November, this movie would have got killed. Sonic would have got killed in November, but strategically moving it to a much better release date for it in February, and that this was all a big plan, Robert, all the machinations of the evil geniuses over there, that this was all planned. I'm going to share something that was interesting. So I had rejected this whole notion that this is what was going on. I had totally rejected it, shut it down, pushed it out. And then I had a conversation with somebody kind of connected to the situation. And what was revealed to me, now hear out this whole story before you jump to any conclusions. What was revealed to me was that whole insane tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory may not have been that crazy. That there were, this is what was revealed to me, that there were conversations that were held about such a marketing ploy, get people talking, even if it's negatively, get them talking about the movie, come out with what they had planned to do all along, blah, 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 and ride the wave of that and get a boost. And I had heard from somebody close to the situation over there that is indeed what it was. That the studio had purposefully manipulated the audience in creating a false fake controversy in order to get more buzz going, because they always planned on having the certain design and they always planned on moving the date. I was getting ready then to make that a topic on the John Campea Show last week. Or I was getting ready to say, sorry. So that conversation happens, blah, 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 blah. So last night, from last week, so last night I put up on Twitter this little tease about today's show saying, you know what, this whole tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory, there may be something to it, because I had a conversation with somebody that kind of suggests that it might be real. We'll talk about it on tomorrow's show. So I put that up. And the reason it is not a topic, why you're not going to see a headline about that on any of my YouTube videos, is because the person who told me that saw my tweet, got back in touch with me and said, hey, you can go ahead and do that as a story, but just so you know, all those things I told you, I wasn't there personally firsthand to witness it. I'm just telling you what I heard happened. So then I'm like, Well, see, now it's not a matter of whether I believe you. Now it's a matter of whether I believe the person who I don't know who told you. And now there's just so many links in this chain that could be weak and nonsense that I decided to delete my tweet, number one, and number two, not run it as a story here today. So I am back to believing that it is just a stupid tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory. So let's get back to talk about the box office as it is. I think $57 million, Rob, for this has to be considered a giant win. Now, this movie is still far from breaking even, but this is a good start. As a matter of fact, if you don't take inflation into account, this is the biggest opening weekend that a video game-based movie has ever had domestically at $57 million. That's not a high standard, granted, but it's still the best opening domestically for a video game adaptation ever. That's got to be considered a win. And again, I know there are a lot of us folks that are used to now hearing about these high-profile movies opening with 120 million, 170 million, 200 million. I get it, but don't let that skew your perspective of the relative nature of how big of a box office opening this is for a movie like this. This is a movie that easily could have opened at 35. I think this is a movie that easily could have opened at 35. And quite frankly, I don't even think 35 would have been all that terrible for it. I think 57 million, Rob, for a movie that is a lot better than I thought it would be, still mediocre at best, but I think this has got to be considered a big win. Rob, you take a look at this situation. You see the opening weekend that it had, understanding that it costs like $85 million to make. It's spent around $50 million on marketing. It's going to need around $200 million to break even, but it's well on its way to that. How do you see a $57 million opening weekend for a movie like Sonic?
Well, I think it's a big win, and to speak to the tinfoil hat theory, I would say, that might have been a brilliant way to market a movie, but the problem is, I don't think it works when you have to go back and spend however much money they had to spend on visual effects to alter or change the look of Sonic, unless that was built into the budget. But I just
right, but
can't.
you know what I had to say about that, right? Like I don't think it cost them next to anything, because remember, all the rigging and animation was done. All they had to do was slap the new model on it and re-render it out. So that really wouldn't have been that big of a consideration.
I just think that I just can't buy into that. I mean, I think
neither can I.
Yeah, I can't. It still costs money. They still had to pay. But the thing that I like about this is, I was talking a little bit about this yesterday on my show, whether fan input should ever be considered when it comes to these properties. And I think it was interesting, regardless of whether it was planned or not, they didn't know about the outcry. They couldn't have known how vocal the outcry to change the Sonic look was going to be. So that would have been a risk. But it was really interesting that they responded. I'd choose to believe that they responded to an audience outcry. They had the opportunity to make a change, and the change worked. And I think that people have liked this movie. They're saying by the end of today, which is a holiday, obviously President's Day, the movie might do 70 million domestic. And that's pretty great. I mean, it's never good, John, when a movie doesn't succeed. I always love it, whether I'm interested in the movie or not. I was never a big Sonic fan because I just didn't play the game. But I love the fact that people who liked Sonic have gone out to see this. It's a family movie. I've seen a lot of tweets from people. They like this film. And isn't that what movies are all about? They're supposed to be entertaining. This movie wasn't a resounding disappointment the way Assassin's Creed, say, was. And I think it's great for everybody involved. I like to see that Paramount gets to put a win. They get to check a win box for this one, because poor Paramount, one of my favorite studios, has not been. They have not been #winning lately, John. And I want to see this movie do well for them. I want to see Top Gun Maverick do well. I want to see about those Mission Impossible movies coming down the pike. I'm glad to see that people are liking this movie. Sonic fans are liking this movie, and the movie's making money, which is good for everybody. So,
dude, if you had told me 2 weeks ago, when all the big positive hype about Harley Quinn Birds of Prey started getting around about how great the movie was going to be and everything, if you had told me 2 weeks ago, and Sonic, which I thought looked like absolute garbage, if you had told me 2 weeks ago, Campea, you're going to like Sonic more than you like Birds of Prey, I would have called you crazy. And yet here we are, living in Crazy Town. Sonic, I believe, and that's all subjective, and there are going to be people that have different opinions, and that's perfectly fine. To me, Sonic was a better movie than Harley Quinn Birds of Prey. I mean, look, I don't think the movie was great. I don't. But I mentioned this in the review. This movie is targeted at two very specific demographics. It's targeted at children, and it's targeted at adults who are in love with the Sonic character. If you are in either one of those camps, I think you're really going to enjoy this movie. I think if you're outside that camp, you may not like it that much. But even somebody like me who is outside that camp, I didn't think it was all that good. But again, it really wasn't all that bad. It was far better than I thought it would be. And I think it's great whenever a movie that can come in and exceed your expectations quality-wise. I think it's especially great when they succeed financially.
You know what else, too, that I'm actually happy about? I've actually watched a lot of Jim Carrey. He's been out on the circuit, tub-thumping the movie, and he's really done his part in terms of hitting all the different morning shows and late-night talk shows. He was on the BBC answering questions from kids. And it's really interesting, when I was watching him do that, there was a lot of kids that were writing in or recording in, or however you want to calling in, and talking about how much they loved Jim Carrey's past performances, like in Ace Ventura and The Mask and things like that. And I think it's great for Jim Carrey. I think this movie is actually a big win for him as well, bringing classic vintage Carreyisms back, and he needed a hit too. And I think it's really great to see. I've always been a fan of Jim Carrey, and the fact that he was able to do movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I think is a marvelous film, and also his Ace Ventura movies, or The Mask, or even like Cable Guy. I like to see an actor come back, and even though this might not have been the movie that he wanted to become a big hit, it has, and I think partly because he has come out in support of this movie. I mean, I know it's part of his contract, but he was very enthusiastic about it, and it's good to see him get a win from this as well.
I'll tell you what, just to repeat what I said about Jim Carrey before, listen, the Sonic character, despite there are some bad effects and very bad compositing and all that kind of stuff, the Sonic character works in the movie. James Marsden's character works in the movie. Jim Carrey steals this movie. And, Rob, you and I talked before about, seeing that Jim Carrey was going to be in this, it could have gone one of two ways. It very easily could have gone the way of a very sad, pathetic demonstration of a once high-profile actor desperately trying to, go back to his wonky ways, and it just comes across as sad and pathetic or whatever. That is not what happened here. This was vintage, prime, glorious Jim Carrey in a very weird role that I never would have thought you could cast him in. And he went in there. He made it. Again, there are other elements about the movie that do work, but for me, Jim Carrey was a standout. Every time Jim Carrey was on the screen as Dr. Robotnik was something to watch. And it was like, watching classic, vintage, prime Jim Carrey again. And that part really, really works on that level. So anyway, guys, let's put it over to you. What do you think about the $57 million opening? I'm sure there are some of you who are like, poof, that's nothing. I watch all these other movies make over 100. That's nothing. That's cool. But do you think like we do? Hey, listen, not all films do that. For a lot of films, opening with $57 million is a win. And I see this as a win. How do you guys see it? Jump on down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets sent in to us by Maxie S., who writes, "Hey, JC and crew. Piggybacking on its Oscar success, the number of theaters showing Parasite doubled this weekend. The movie had its most successful box office days in the North American box office, making the weekend top 10 for the first time. How do you feel about that?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Maxie. And of course, the Academy Award-winning film for Best Picture of 2019 was Parasite. A lot of us, including me, thought it might have gone to 1917. Some people, like myself, thought it should have been Jojo Rabbit, but it went to an absolutely glorious film nonetheless in Parasite. And I think this becomes a great case study about why a lot of studios put their Oscar-contending films near the end of the year. And this will give us a little bit of an insight in this. This comes to us from Variety. The twisted South Korean thriller collected $5.5 million over the weekend, which when you understand how small of a budget this movie has, that's a remarkable number. Anyway, it collected $5.5 million over the weekend, an exceptional, get this, 234% increase in ticket sales, and the biggest post-Oscar boost for a Best Picture winner in the past decade. In the 7 days since the Academy Awards on February 9th, Parasite has brought in $8.8 million, representing 20% of its domestic tally. To date, Parasite has made $44 million in the U.S., a massive result for a foreign language film. First of all, good for them. Good for them. Because this movie is freaking awesome. And it is so great. It is so great as a film fan, Rob, to see a movie that is as good as Parasite, getting a lot of Oscar buzz and Oscar wins, winning Best Picture, and that then motivating a lot of film fans to going, wow, I should really go out and see that. And then film fans hearing about how good this movie is, taking action and actually getting off their asses and going out to the theaters and seeing this incredible work of cinema that is Parasite. And Rob, I think in this one example, we have a microcosm of exactly how studios hope something like this would work for what they consider to be their Oscar contending films. They hope that having their films in theaters around the time that they're going to get their Oscar buzz will motivate people and film fans to go, hey, maybe we should check this out. And seeing this happen for Parasite, number one, it couldn't happen to a better movie. I'm super thrilled to see the results that it's getting. But I think this is only going to really kind of make a lot of the studios dig in on their more artistic, their Oscar caliber kind of films, really putting them out so that they're in theater when the Oscar buzz, because clearly the Oscar buzz does turn into dollars when people are motivated to go to see it. But anyway, Rob, you see these numbers, you hear about this. What do you think about it?
Well, like you said, I mean, it couldn't be better. And, you know, Bong Joon-ho is a filmmaker that everybody watching this channel would probably enjoy, all the way from his serial killer drama that's a true story, Memories of Murder, which Criterion just released that they're finally putting out on Blu-ray. I've had the DVD for a long time, but he's made a monster movie in The Host. He did a science fiction movie in Snowpiercer that's being turned into a TV show. And Parasite, he is a world-class filmmaker, has been for the better part of 2 decades. And it's just great to see the mainstream. Look, there's so many great movies that are being made all around the world that Americans just don't see. And it's really great when a movie like this, I mean, Parasite's historic win in both Best International Film and Best Picture, and Bong Joon-ho winning Best Director, it's only... Look,
and Best Screenplay.
And Best Screenplay. It broadens people's perspective, their horizons, and it introduces people to world-class filmmaking they might not otherwise have delved into. And when people start looking into his filmography, they're going to find a lot to love. And it's always good when this kind of thing happens. And it's great to see filmgoers realizing they can look outside their comfort zone and find things that they really might enjoy. And I think Bong Joon-ho is one of the great filmmakers working today, and it's great to see the attention not only on Parasite, but on his entire filmography. So I, for one, am really excited.
It is funny because this whole Oscar season has made Bong Joon-ho, for a lot of film fans, a household name now, which it was not before. Maybe it should have been before, but it's going to be really interesting to see where he decides to take his career from here. Question is, guys, what do you make of these numbers? I mean, this is kind of unprecedented, even that type of a growth after. Does that impress you? Does you not care about it? What do you guys think? I think it's great. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Danesh Mutubai, who writes, forgive me, dude, I'm terrible with pronouncing names.
That's a cool name, though.
It is a very cool name. Greetings, fellow filthians. Oh, I like that. I think The Witcher may be my favorite show of all time. Maybe the second. The point is, I love it. Anyway, did you see that they've added 2 new Witchers to the show? One is Paul Bullion from Peaky Blinders, another show I really like, and the other, who is Yasin Atur from Strike Back, which I don't watch. What do you think of these new additions? All right, thanks a lot for sending that out, man. And listen, while I may not be somebody who thinks Witcher is one of my all-time favorite shows, damn, it was good. so good that I'm not even really 100% sure myself if I preferred it or The Mandalorian. I mean, that's how much I like, because you guys know how much I love Mandalorian, and I'm not even 100% sure if I liked Witcher more, if I liked Mandalorian more. That's how much I dug them both. Not my top 5 favorite shows of all time, but I really, really dug them. But ever since that has come out, and ever since we got Witcher, we've been kind of waiting for it. We heard that there was going to be a full animated movie that was going to come out as a result that ties into the main storyline. And now we're getting word that we are getting 2 brand new Witchers popping up. Of course, we've also heard about a lot of the other characters that people know from the mythology that are going to be popping up in here too. And of course, now here's the problem for me. Now, I believe the one guy is going to be playing a Witcher named Lambert. So from what I understand, now look, I'm not soaked in the mythology of Witcher. I've played Witcher 3 a little bit. I've never read the novels. I never played Witcher 1 or 2. So that's about it. But apparently he's playing Lambert. I don't know who the other Witcher is going to be at this point. I only watched a little bit of Peaky Blinders. Now, like everybody else, Rob, I heard that Peaky Blinders was amazing. I don't know if you've seen it. I've heard Peaky Blinders was really, really good.
It's amazing.
Okay, so like I watched the first 3 episodes and I just couldn't get into it. I don't know why. For whatever reason, I couldn't get into it, so I kind of jumped off. I didn't hate it. It wasn't clicking for me for whatever reason, so I jumped off. So I'm not really clear, and I don't know this guy's work all that well. So Rob, as somebody who has watched Peaky Blinders, what do you think about this casting? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think it's great. You know, again, like you, I'm not familiar. I haven't read the Witcher books. My experience with Witcher was playing a little Witcher 3, the video game.
Yeah.
And which is a phenomenal game, by the way. But, you know, I think this casting is great. But it's hard because, you know, for me, if actors are great actors, that's terrific. The real question is, do they match the character as written and as directed? And you're not really going to know until you see it. But I would imagine the producers, I don't think The Witcher, I'm almost done with it, by the way, is it's hit and miss for me, to be honest. And I like a lot of the show. I don't think it's genius, but one of the things I do love is the casting. And I like the actors. And I think that they've probably carefully considered their options. So I would assume they know their stuff. So I am excited. I think the show is only going to get better, and I'm looking forward to the fact that they greenlit a season 2 very quickly, and that means that at least Netflix is very behind this show, and I'm glad. I hope it has more than 3 seasons.
For me, the show was hit and hit. I really enjoyed it. So everybody, toss a coin to your Witcher and let us know, what do you think about this announcement? Do you like the casting? Do you not? Are you excited about the future of it? Regardless, jump down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts there. Okay, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our 4th main topic today gets sent into us by Gabriel Ray, who wrote, "Hello, John. I hope you're having a great day. I am, Gabriel. Thank you so much for asking. I just read a report from IGN that says WWE star Sasha Banks will appear in Mandalorian. We were just talking about Mandalorian. In Mandalorian Season 2. I am a fan of Banks, and I love The Mandalorian. I think Jon Favreau can do magic with this upcoming talent. What are your thoughts on this? Thanks." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, for those of you who have not heard, we all known for a long time that Mandalorian Season 2 is already in development and is already shooting. We know that. Well, apparently, according to a couple of reports, and they've been confirmed, as Gabriel wrote in his email, WWE superstar Sasha Banks has indeed joined up and has now already completed her shooting for Mandalorian Season 2. Number one, that just excites me because I just love thinking of The Mandalorian Season 2 already being a real thing. So that already just kind of excites me. What do I think about the idea of a Sasha Banks being in it? Well, there's 2 different thoughts I have. Number one is, oh God, no. I am not a fan of non-actors getting big acting roles. Leave those roles for real actors. To me, that is the most important thing, is acting ability. That is the number one thing more than anything else. And so, yeah, my one thought is, oh God, no, please don't do this. But there's a second thought that I have, Rob. And that second thought is this, is that if you have a role for somebody that can bring something where maybe it's a physicality, maybe it's an action acumen, maybe it's something else along those lines. But if you have a role for somebody that quite honestly doesn't require, that the role doesn't have them doing a lot that would require a lot of great acting, then sure, why not? Go ahead. So we're sitting in this situation right now where we know Sasha Banks is going to be in it. Number one, Sasha Banks is ridiculously beautiful. Number two, she is a dynamic athlete. She is an absolute dynamic athlete. I can't believe the things that her and her fellow WWE female wrestlers can do in the ring. It is crazy. So she will obviously, and look, we saw the benefits of that with Crush, who the girl in Mandalorian season 1. Why am I freezing on the former MMA fighter's name?
I want to say Cara Dune.
Yeah, well, that's the character's name, but
Gina
Carano. Thank you. I love Gina Carano. Why did I freeze her name? Anyway, I don't think Gina Carano is the greatest actress in the world, but she's improved a lot. She has improved a lot, and she was able to bring that physicality to it to just give it a little bit more dimension. Sasha Banks can do that. So I think this could be good if she has limited lines, and what is being called upon for her to do is limited in scope, understanding she will be a limited actress. But then highlight, and James Gunn is great with doing this with his performers, highlight what makes her stand out. Highlight her physicality, highlight her action, highlight those certain things that doesn't require her to be a great actress, minimize the stuff that does, and it could be fine. So if they suddenly slap her in here as a brand new major love interest and she has tons of dialogue, this could go bad real fast. But if it's limited and you're highlighting what she's great at, this could actually be a really good thing. So I'm going to give Jon Favreau the benefit of the doubt for now, and I'm going to just guess that this will be good because I'm going to guess they're going to keep her actual acting limited. And if they do that, I'm totally good with it. Rob, you hear about this. What are you thinking?
Well, again, I lean into trusting the filmmakers, and Favreau and company have done a fine job creating a show that Star Wars fans, new and old, can get behind and have really enjoyed. And I would assume that they are going to continue that trend. And there's probably a reason why they picked her. Maybe Gina Carano suggested her. And I mean, they didn't just do this willy-nilly. So there was something they wanted out of her, and I'm sure they probably got it, whether it was a physicality, whether it was maybe she plays a bounty hunter, maybe she plays some badass. I think it's kind of an interesting choice, but I would imagine when you have somebody like Gina Carano, who's part of the cast, she might say, hey, you know what? My friend did this. Maybe you should take a look at it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, and I think what we're going to get, it's probably going to be pretty cool. I mean, if there's one thing I've learned, the Mandalorian has become an action figure I want rich environment. And I'll tell you, there's already 3 hot toys on the way from the Mandalorian. I want a Cara Dune hot toy, and judging just as a cursory glance at her images on Google, I think she'll make a fine action figure too. And let's hope. But I'm excited. I mean, dude, like you. The fact that Mandalorian Season 2's people have wrapped filming Mandalorian Season 2 just warms my heart.
Indeed it does. So the question here is, guys, what do you think about the word that Sasha Banks has already shot a bunch of her stuff and all of her stuff that's going to be a part of Mandalorian Season 2? Are you like, what the hell are they doing? Or are you like, yeah, this is great? Or are you like me, where you're cautiously optimistic? It's like, you know what? This could be great if it's handled a certain way. How do you feel about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, with that down, let's move on to our 5th and final main topic today. And our 5th and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Ed Doskov, who writes, hey, John, big fan from Russia. All right, Ed, thanks for sending that in, man. Do you think James Gunn's The Suicide Squad will also be rated R as Harley Quinn movie? Because before the announcement of Harley Quinn movie rating, I saw rumors floating around that both movies will be rated R, and one turned out to be true. What do you think of this? Thanks. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, you're absolutely right. There have been whispers and rumors and speculations for a long time that Suicide Squad, the new one under James Gunn, would be rated R. Now, it's important to point out here, though, that has not been confirmed by anybody. I do not believe there has ever been an official word that came from James Gunn or the studio to confirm that this movie will be rated R. I think this raises two questions, Rob. And of course, as Ed so accurately pointed out, the same rumors floated about Harley Quinn for a long time, and that did turn out to be true, even though Harley Quinn didn't need to be an R-rated movie. Like, once you see Harley Quinn, you realize this didn't need to be rated R anyway, but they did go for the R rating. I think this raises two distinctly unique questions. Number one is, will Suicide Squad be rated R? And then number two, should it be rated R? Let's look at the first question initially. Will James Gunn's Suicide Squad be rated R? I have a feeling it will be, for a couple of different reasons. One, I think one of the reasons Warner Brothers so actively went out and tried to recruit James Gunn was under the idea and belief that just let James Gunn go balls to the wall and do whatever he wants to do. And in that environment, I think there's probably a pretty decent chance that he could want to go the R-rated route, Rob. I think there's a good chance for that. Also, like Ed wrote, those rumors about Suicide Squad seem to go hand in hand with Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn did end up being R-rated, so there's that as well. On top of all that, Warner Brothers seems to be in an odd mindset that R equals better, which is totally BS. That's totally wrong thinking. R is great if you have a film that really requires an R. Otherwise, you don't need it. However, they seem to be R happy at the moment. And that's perfectly fine. Worked great for Joker. Didn't work so great for Harley Quinn. But whatever. So I personally think, and again, there's no backing this up, I just personally think that the new Suicide Squad will be rated R. Might not be, but I'm thinking it will be. But then, Rob, comes the second question. Should it be rated R? I'm not so convinced about that. I mean, obviously, making something rated R does not equal box office gold. We just saw that. It can work for the appropriate movie, but if it's not the appropriate movie, it makes no difference. So I just don't know that there's a need. James Gunn was able to do amazing, remarkable things with Guardians of the Galaxy, and that was very comfortably nested in, very cozy in a PG-13 rating. And I think he's great at that, and there's no reason not to. But, Rob, it all comes down to, what does he have in mind for this movie? Does he want this movie to have a lot of brains bursting out of heads and falling on the floor? Does he want to have some nudity? Does he want to have some sex? Does he want to do all that? If he does, well then yeah, you kind of got to go R-rated. But is it necessary? I don't know. I mean, Dark Knight didn't need to be rated R. I mean, the greatest comic book films of all time didn't need to be rated R. The first Suicide Squad, which was admittedly a hot mess, but it made a hell of a lot of money, didn't need to be rated R. So I'm going to say I think the jury's out about whether or not this movie should be rated R, but I think it will be. Rob, when you look at those two questions, will it and should it, how do you approach them?
Well, I've never thought that a rating necessarily has anything to do with the quality or the success of a film. I think a filmmaker should be able to make the film they want to make as long as they're in agreement with the studio, and then the finished film is then sent off for a rating. Jaws was PG-13, and or PG, there was no PG-13 rating when it came out. When Jaws came out, it was PG. It was one of the most terrifying. I think I was 8. I saw it in the theater when I was 8, and it was one of the scariest things I'd ever seen. I didn't think about the rating. I just thought about Jaws. And if Suicide Squad, if it lends itself to an R rating, if the harder edge is better for the movie, if language and violence, I mean, it is called Suicide Squad after all. I want something that's hard hitting. I want it to be in my face. I want to see a bunch of bad dudes and dudettes brought together to kick some ass. I want violence. I don't know if sex belongs in it, but why not? Bring on the filthy. And if it demands an R rating, I hope it has one. But what I really want is a great movie. And I think as long as it's a great movie first, whether it's rated PG, PG-13, or R, it doesn't really matter. I really want the film to be terrific, first and foremost. Great characters, a great story, wildly entertaining, the comedy and action stylings of James Gunn, most of all. And if that demands an R rating, so be it. We know he can make. Super was a very R-rated movie. Slither was a very R-rated movie. But Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't, nor did it need to be. And I think that either way, James Gunn, I trust in Gunn. You put a gun in a studio's hand and they'll pull that trigger.
Here's my fear. And I'm not saying this is happening. I'm just saying this is what I worry about. I worry that the studio tries to coerce James Gunn and force him to make it R-rated. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about James Gunn coming up with a great movie, a great fun idea, a great movie that he thinks is going to be satisfying for the audience, fun for everybody, make a lot of money, and then have the studio come to him and go, James, the kiddies love R. The kiddies love R, James. You should put some more F-bombs in there just for the hell of it. Put some more blood into the element. Show an ass just for the hell of it. Go make it rated R. And James Gunn going, but that's not what I planned. I've planned this movie. This is the tone of my movie. Yeah, but the kiddies love R. Just go ahead and make it R. And they've kind of maybe coerce him into making it R, because I'll tell you what, that is the feeling I got from Harley Quinn and Birds of Prey. That there was like no universe that movie needed to be rated R. There's just a couple of minor tweaks they would have needed to have made it for that to fall comfortably into PG-13. But I felt like it was their mandate to make it R, because R is cool. And listen, when the studio says something is cool, that makes it stop being cool. And, and I just worry that they might try to coerce James Gunn into doing that. At the same time, the one protection against that is that James Gunn had his choice to go anywhere he wanted. When he became a free agent, he literally had every studio lining up making him offers. So I have a feeling he probably had a lot of control and probably put some safeguards in saying, I get to decide what movie I'm making and how I'm going to make it. So maybe that protects it from itself. But I don't know. That's going to be the one thing I'm worried about, is that James Gunn doesn't make the movie that he actually wants to make. But I think there's a lot of reasons to believe he will. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? And how would you answer those two questions? Number one, do you think that Suicide Squad, James Gunn's version, will be rated R? Number two, do you think it needs to be? Again, it's hard to answer when we don't know what movie he's making, but still, what do you speculate? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that stuff down and out of the way, we're now going to move on to our live questions you guys sent in, including we're going to start getting caught up on some of the leftover questions from Saturday's open mic, and then we'll roll right into the live questions you guys have been sending in today. If you'd like to send in a live question, there's two ways to do it. Number one, and the best way, is use the tip link that's in the top line of the description of this video, or it's right here as well. It's streamlablands.com/movieblogtv/tip. You can do that. And by the way, you can use that anytime, 24/7. And if you want to send it in later today, your question will be one of the first ones that get answered tomorrow. The other way to send in live questions is to simply use the YouTube Super Chat feature. So we're going to get to your live questions in just a moment. The first thing me and Rob are going to do is we're going to take a short 4-minute break, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom, give us a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch our legs, refill our drinks, and come back fresh and ready to go. So if you guys will hang tight with us, don't go anywhere, talk amongst yourselves, we will be right back. We'll see you in just a couple minutes. And we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there. And so let's get on over and start taking your live questions. And we're going to get things started off here with Campea, who writes, saw Gretel and Hansel twice recently. I'm super conflicted. Awful pacing, but beautiful and grotesque audio visuals and great performances. Ever felt that way about a film? I think I love it, but I'm not sure. And I left my drink downstairs, so I need to go back down and get my drink. So, Rob, I'll throw it over to you for a minute while I go do that. Have you ever felt that way about a movie that you just, like, you're conflicted about it? It's great in one way, but terrible in another, and that left you kind of conflicted? How would you answer that?
Well, that's an interesting question, John. There are a number of movies that I feel that way about. I mean, this is going to seem terrible, but one of my favorite movies is Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, which is based on Arkady and Boris Strugatsky's book Roadside Picnic, which is one of the great Russian science fiction novels. Now, if anyone has seen Stalker, especially people watching this broadcast, when I first saw Stalker, I was really excited because it was the same director as Solaris. It was Andrei Tarkovsky, one of my favorite directors. Stalker was like watching paint dry. However, it is one of the most strikingly beautiful, one of the most unbelievably well photographed movies you'll ever see. But the pacing is like non-existent. And by the way, there's a great video about how everybody who worked on the film, because they shot it basically in toxic waste dumps, died of cancer. But the movie it's hard to get through. Even the brand new, beautiful Criterion Blu-ray, as gorgeous as it looks, I really admire the movie. I actually love the movie, but by God, John, it's like watching paint dry. And it's a great science fiction fantasy film, but I don't know if I could recommend anyone else other than myself sit through it.
All right.
So there you go.
Next up here, we've got Suthius writes, tragic opening in Bond, perhaps the death of M. I don't know what it could be. Rob, interesting fact, though. You and I were talking about how that Billie Eilish song could be good or could be terrible depending on the cold opening of the movie.
Right.
I read a report, an interview actually, Billie Eilish, and people sent this to me, Billie Eilish actually talking about it and saying that the Bond producer sent her the script and that she actually wrote the song based around the tone and what happened in the first part of the script. Now, somebody who's been concerned about that, does that make you feel any better about it?
No, I have to say, I whenever a Bond theme comes out, I listen to it over and over and over as a lifelong Bond fan. I mean, every time that every 5 years they would release a compilation of the Bond theme songs, and all of them are drilled into my head. And I love the Bond theme songs overall. And the song has really grown on me. I do think it's a very well produced song. I really love Eilish's vocal. It's just, to me, initially, I've always wanted a little bit more punch to my Bond themes, but I understand, we know that apparently even from the trailer that Lea Seydoux' character, Madeline Swan, hasn't been totally honest with Bond. And even Rami Malek talks about how when the secret gets out, or Blofeld, when the secret gets out, it could be the death of him. Obviously, she's been somewhat duplicitous, and what great Bond girl isn't a little duplicitous? And I mean, sure, Vesper Lynn, played by Eva Green in Casino Royale, certainly was, and Daniel Craig can't catch a break. So maybe, like you said, if the cold open is good and it leads into the song, and Daniel Kleinman, whose opening credits, he's been doing them since GoldenEye, although he missed Quantum of Solace. If it's all great and works well within the context of the movie, I'm in. I'm definitely in. But the song has very much grown on me, I have to say.
All right. Next one up is Major Tom, who writes, hey, John, thanks for pointing me towards Screen Anarchy. I decided to check it out while listening. That's one site I'm definitely going to be paying attention to. Again, thanks for that. So many different kinds of movies, so little time. So what Major Tom is talking about is the other day I recommended for people who are really into smaller indie and particularly foreign film, was probably the best site on the web for that was a site called twitchfilm.net.
So good.
Unfortunately, Twitch, the video game streaming company, which came after twitchfilm.net, they got way more popular. And so the names got confused. So what they decided to do was change their name to Screen Anarchy. And I highly recommend that if you're into those types of films, that you really do go check that site out, because it's probably one of the best, if not the best site on the web for stuff like that. Kevin Katchayan writes, "Hey, John, how underappreciated was Tommy Lee Jones in Captain America First Avenger? Went back to watch it and forgot how entertaining it was. Very underrated." Listen, first of all, that is a movie that is underrated, period. Captain America The First Avenger is an underrated film. It is better than a lot of people, I believe, than a lot of people make it out to be. And one of the great reasons why was Tommy Lee Jones. I thought Tommy Lee Jones was fabulous in that movie. Rob, what do you think of Tommy Lee Jones in Captain America The First Avenger?
Tommy Lee Jones in Captain America: The First Avenger?
Yeah.
I guess he was good.
Yeah, I thought he was great in it.
I mean, yeah. What's not to love? I love Captain America: The First Avenger. I mean, and Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, you know, I would dare say that he might be cliche, because it wasn't really a stretch what he was doing. I mean, he's in that role. He's always, you know, I imagine that if there's an afterlife, Tommy Lee Jones is either going to play a gruff cop, a military, you know, an officer. He's either going to be, you know, part of this was Secret Service looking for Harrison Ford. He's either going to be a commanding officer, commanding troops in the field, or he's going to be a cop like in No Country for Old Men. And you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
My favorite line of his ever is still from that one he did with Harrison Ford. I didn't kill my wife. I don't care. Just one of the. So, and didn't that win him an Academy Award?
I think it did. Either that, or he might, or in a nomination. He was so good in The Fugitive. Oh. I mean, Let's not talk about The Fugitive 2. Let's not talk about The Fugitive 2. But yes, The Fugitive, he was amazing. U.S. Marshals. Yeah, no, I'm a huge Tommy Lee Jones fan. I've always loved Tommy Lee Jones. You know, he was in. You ever see a movie called Black Moon Rising?
I have not.
It's a John Carpenter script, and it's about this supercar. It's not great, but it's kind of cool. You know, it was a low budget B movie in the '80s. You should check it out. Black Moon Rising.
Let's move on to the next topic here. And the next one comes to us from Dimsum05, who writes, "Honestly, guys, do you really think that that music in the Batman reveal is even going to make it in the movie? Don't they usually just use some one-off piece to highlight it? I thought the score is usually made in the later stages of the movie anyways, right?" Well, clearly Michael Giacchino's already working on it. I mean, so that much is clear. He's already kind of stated that. So whether or not the music in that little Batman suit reveal is used in the movie or not almost becomes irrelevant, because even if it's not used, it is at least giving us insight into the approach that Giacchino is taking with the music. So I think even if it's not in there, I think you can be very stoked about it. Personally, I think it will make its way in there, but even if it doesn't, and you like what you're hearing, it probably gives us an indication of the DNA of the music that he's making for it, which can be pretty exciting. Rob, what do you think? Do you think the music we heard in that little spot is even going to make it in the movie?
You know, maybe the theme, but I would imagine that that was probably done specifically for that reveal. But I think that, you know, a composer has to look at finished footage and see the movie before they can really start scoring. I mean, of course, there are people that get scripts and they start just before they've seen nothing. They've just read a screenplay and they start developing their ideas. So I think that's where some of that music might have come from. But I would imagine the music is going to mutate and alter and change as production, as they move through production. But maybe it'll be retained. Maybe that melody or will be, who knows?
All right, next up, Major Tom writes, "I didn't care for Birds of Prey either. The issues that I had with Birds of Prey were the same ones that I had with Suicide Squad. Lots of great individual elements, but none of it really fit well together. They needed to stick to solo character films for a while." Yeah, you just kind of said what I've been saying about it, Major Tom, is the fact that there are a number of elements of the movie that I actually quite liked. But it just didn't collectively come together for me as a really watchable movie. Just a lot of too many different element things. And I don't know. Even if they just called it Harley Quinn, I don't think that would have made much of a difference. But look, the other thing is a lot of people are liking the movie, and that's important. And I'm glad the other people who are enjoying it are enjoying it. I just wish I did too, because I started getting really hyped for it. All right, James Hopkins writes, someone asked if Birds of Prey bombing will affect Wonder Woman 84. I say no. Even though they're both in the DCEU, they're far enough removed from each other, but the new Suicide Squad movie might be in trouble. I honestly don't know, James. I don't know about that. Because here's the thing. A lot of people are liking this Birds of Prey movie, regardless of how it's doing at the box office. The fact of the matter is, unlike myself, that didn't like it that much, the majority of the people who are seeing it are liking it. And that's the important thing. So if the people who see it like it, I don't see how that's going to be a negative thing moving forward. It's unfortunate that more people weren't interested in going to see it, but those who are seeing, look, if everybody who saw it hated it, well, then that would be bad news for Suicide Squad. But the people who are seeing this movie are enjoying it for the most part. I didn't, but that's fine. That's just my opinion. But there are a lot of people who do. And as such, I'm not sure that it's going to have a negative impact on Suicide Squad, to be honest with you. So I think Suicide Squad in its own marketing will live and die by Suicide Squad in its own marketing. That's how I kind of feel about it. We'll have to wait and see, though, for sure. All right. Fan of Peanuts writes, watching XFL on ABC. By the way, that's been more entertaining to watch than I thought it would be. Watching XFL on ABC and eating sushi while watching you on the phone. Tell Ann I say hello. How is Ashley doing? And John, you are great. Keep being you. Thanks very much. I'm not a big sushi guy myself, so I can't say that I've watched the XFL eating sushi. Ashley, I believe, is doing well. Her stuff, I just keep following her on social media. She seems to be doing well. And I will definitely pass along to Ann that you said hello and enjoy the XFL. All right, Attic Hatch Sound writes, long thought Lord of the Rings trilogy was the greatest cinematic achievement. I think Return of the King won everything as a proxy for the trilogy. No, I disagree with that entirely. That's just not how the Academy works. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, I've done this. We make up these mechanisms, Rob, like we make up these fake scenarios, and we say that's why somebody did this, even though there's no actual evidence to support that. I think if they wanted to honor Lord of the Rings via proxy, they would have given Two Towers some awards. But Two Towers really didn't, I don't know if it won anything. If it did, it didn't win much. After the first Lord of the Rings got a Best Picture nomination as well. So no, the Academy is like, again, there's 7,000 various different types of voting members. They just look at it and they vote what they think. It wasn't done via proxy. Do you see any like weight to that at all, Rob?
No, I've heard that many times over the years, but I think a lot of perhaps the Academy, it's easy to think of the Lord of the Rings series. It was made, as one film. They shot it all at once, and then of course they did lots of pickups for each individual film. But I think that Return of the King on its own is a staggering achievement, and the entire production and what they did at the time was so ambitious. It was such a risk, and it was so rewarding at the end for everybody that was involved. I think it was undeniable, the power. Has anyone ever stuck a landing on a multi-film series more so than Return of the King did? I think it's well deserving of all of its awards, and I think to say that it's a proxy, I mean, yes, I don't think you could think of Return of the King without thinking of the other two films in the franchise. But Return of the King is it's huge. I mean, the movie is such a gigantic film. And even the one scene where they're lighting, when they finally get they call for Gondor.
Call for aid from Gondor.
I mean, that scene alone, with the music and the cinematography of the New Zealand landscape and the lighting of those beacons, dude. For that shot and that music alone, give it the Academy Award. I mean, come on.
Dude, I know I say it all the time, but one of the most grr, I'm a man moments ever in the history of film. Strider comes running into King Theoden's throne room, panting because he's been sprinting. Said, the torches have been lit. Gondor calls for aid. And the camera pans over Theoden, then into a tight shot on his mighty brow going, and Rohan shall answer. It's like, if that doesn't give you fucking goosebumps, screw off, because that is movies. That is movie making at its best, man.
I know, dude.
You see the hair on my arms, man. I get so just thinking about that moment when King Theoden, like, oh, it's just so fucking good.
Dude,
anyway.
I love the gates with the mouth of Sauron comes out, and then,
oh, yeah.
they decide to, Viggo Mortensen's like, fuck it. We're going.
Yeah. Oh God, love it so much. Love it so much.
So good.
Okay. Sorry. I could talk about that. Just one thing all day. All right. Taki75 writes, Lucasfilm just announced their newest film. It will be a sexy comedy with the title Palpatine Gets Busy, a Star Wars story. That's, of course, listen, it is a tired joke, but the fact of the matter is, whenever anybody talks about the fact that he had a granddaughter, the first reaction from everybody is like, wait a minute. Does that mean? Yes, it did mean that. And that's why people are going to be joking about it for years to come. All right, Sarcastic Satire writes, good day, John. Question. Has there ever been an instance, be it in a movie or series, where an actor/actress was so obviously doubled for a scene that it took you out of the scene? For me, Steven Seagal, after nearly every movie he's done post-Exit Wounds, I mean, listen, there have certainly been movies and TV shows, particularly A-Team. If you guys remember the TV show A-Team, there were definitely moments where you could clearly tell, hey, that's not Benedict. What was Benedict's last name?
Oh,
the guy who played Face. Anyway, that's not him. That's not George Papard. That's somebody else playing hand. Like, you could see it, but I don't know if I can ever think of a time that I noticed it, that it actually took me out. I don't know that I ever actually noticed that or it did that to me. Rob, can you ever think of a time when clearly, when it's clear a body double has entered the scene, but it's been so egregious that it actually pulled you out of the movie?
I don't know if it pulled me out of the movie. I mean, there's when Star Trek, the original series, was put on
By
Blu-ray.
the way, everybody in the chat board is yelling out Dirk Benedict. Thank you, chat board. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Oh, I was thinking of the actual, yes, Benedict. I should have known that. I was thinking about the movie. No, not in a movie. I don't think in a movie, but I go back and I watch my beloved classic Star Trek episodes on Blu-ray, and you can tell when stuntmen are being employed. But other than that, I not in a movie. Not in a movie.
All right. Next up, John DeMoto writes, Mark Hamill joining Masters of the Universe, Luke Skywalker himself. I'm excited to see what he'll bring to this franchise. Here's the thing, Rob. I love the voice of Mark Hamill as much as anybody. But I never get excited about an animated movie because of who's going to be doing the voice. I never get excited about that. I mean, it's cool to hear it's going to be Mark Hamill because everybody knows I love Mark Hamill. But honestly, it's Mark Hamill doing it. He's not writing it. I mean, so I never get that excited about it. So I honestly, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, Kevin Smith is doing it, which is really cool, but I don't know how I feel about it in general. Rob, does it move the needle for you at all?
Not much. Should it?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's how I kind of feel about it. I mean, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay. I mean, listen. I am more likely to be excited about a voice actor being named and it's Mark Hamill than just about anybody else. It's just that it doesn't matter. I mean, you could say Daniel Day-Lewis is going to be doing a voice, who is the greatest actor of all time, and I'm not going to get that excited about it. I mean, because
I will say, look, I love Mark Hamill as a voiceover artist and as an actor. I will say that collectively, the whole voice cast that they have for that new He-Man series is pretty dope, dude. I mean, they have a lot of, and collectively, I think it's really, really cool.
All right. Next up, McKeel writes, God will appear in Lucifer Season 5. They already cast Dennis Haysbert to portray him. Article came out last month saying with the co-showrunner telling EW. Yeah, and actually it came out even before that. We talked about that the other day. Somebody was asking if we thought God would actually appear in Lucifer Season 5. I said I think he will, but I forgot that reports had come out months ago that 24 alum Dennis Haysbert, who's got one of the best voices in the business today, that he was actually going to appear as Lucifer's dad. So you're absolutely right about that, McKeel. All right, Henry Martins writes, in the past 2 years, I've seen Ghostbusters, Citizen Kane, Close Encounters, Godfather 2, Jaws, and Raiders. I had never seen them before because I was waiting to watch them on a big screen and wasn't disappointed. Thrilled to cross those movies off my list. Dude, that is so great. And fortunately, a number of those films are often played on the big screen at special events. Citizen Kane all the time. Godfather films all the time. Raiders all the time. So I'm glad you did. But listen, don't hold off on checking off some of those films off your list just because you're waiting around to see it on the big screen, because you never know when that opportunity is going to come along. Make sure you start scratching those off, Henry, but I'm glad you were able to get those ones, because those ones on the big screen, those would be some great experiences. All right, Willow writes, to Ivan Pietro, who asked about what foods to try in Vancouver, the best place for poutine here in Vancouver is called La Belle Patate? Located in Davie Village, our city's gay neighborhood. I'm not a purist, though. I like smoked meats on my poutine. Somebody was asking the other day, Rob, if, going to Vancouver, what types of food should I try? I said there's not a lot of difference between American and Canadian cuisine, but one of the big standouts is, of course, poutine. Got to try it. But I am with you, Willow. I also am a big fan of really good smoked meats in poutine as well. Like I like just pure straight poutine, but having some really good smoked meats, things like that, barbecue meats even I've had in there, are always really good way to go. Willie Rivera writes, hey John, I'm getting married on Saturday. Congratulations, dude. That's awesome. And we leave for our honeymoon the following week. We're spending a week in LA for it, since we've never been. Any recommendations for cool places we should check out as the movie-loving couple we are? Ooh, well, that makes it even easier, Willie. Because if you're a movie-loving couple, I mean, you got to visit Hollywood and Highland, go into the Chinese theater, walk the Walk of Fame, stand there in front of the Dolby Cinema where the Oscars are held. You can actually walk up the stairs that you see all the movie stars walking up, going in to the theater for the Oscars. You can go and walk up the stairs, and you're walking in between these great pillars they've put up, Rob. You've seen these, right? That have all the Best Picture winners etched in them. Pardon me, yeah. Really, really cool. Rob, if you were to write, you've been in LA longer than me. If you were to tell somebody who's visiting LA for the first time and they're real hardcore movie lovers, where would you suggest they maybe go and check out while they're here?
Well, you got to go to the Griffith Park Observatory, because you're going all the way back to James Dean and Rebel Without a Cause.
That's
and
right.
The knife fight. And there is a bust of James Dean up there. Plus, you get an incredible view of all of LA. Other places that I think people...
And by the way, I heard James Dean's making a new movie. I don't know if you heard that. Remember that?
It's amazing. It's amazing that James Dean is able to be resurrected from the great beyond, John. The Hollywood Reservoir, I really like going up there just because it's a great spot. A lot of people, even people that live in LA, have never gone up there. And it's literally right behind Hollywood at the base of the Hollywood Hills. You can go up Beechwood. And then once you're at the top and see the Hollywood sign, you can just go up the hill and over the hill, and you get to the Hollywood Reservoir, and it's great. That's another place I'd go. And you've got to go to, obviously, City Walk and see Harry Potter, and then don't go to Venice, but go to Manhattan Beach and go up to Zuma. Check it out there.
All right. And by the way, and congrats again, Willie, on the forthcoming nuptials. That's awesome, man. All right. 50 Shades writes, I'm 50-50 on the bat suit. The cowl and shoulders look really good to me, but the entire chest area looks very action figure-ish. Plastic trying to look like metal. But I need to see the full costume to judge it properly. See, I agree. I think, look, everybody's got to keep in mind this was a quick peek in a very heavily colorized thing, in a very specific shot. I thought it looked fine, but even though I like it, I'm not going to get too enthusiastic about it until we start seeing it in context. But yeah, I did like what we saw. 50 Shades also writes, me, hey Dad, did you see the new Star Wars movie? Dad, yeah, that's the one where Han Solo dies, right? Me, sigh. Yeah, listen, I've told some stories about things with my dad, which have always been great, but it's always funny when you get those. All right, 50 Shades also writes, Saoirse Ronan already has 4 Oscar nominations. That's 1 nom for every 5 years she's alive. It's true. Listen, somebody asked the question the other day, Rob. They were asking about, whether I think Timothée Chalamet or Saoirse Ronan is going to win an Oscar first. And I'm like, Well, they're both going to win Oscars. I mean, they just are. I mean, Saoirse Ronan already has 4 Academy Award nominations for acting at her age. Timothée Chalamet, I believe, is evolving into the next Daniel Day-Lewis. He's not there yet, but I think that's what I see him becoming. He's a remarkable performer. I think they're both getting it. If you had to guess which one would get one first, Rob, who would you guess?
I think they're going to both win an Oscar in the same year. She's going to get Best Actress. He's going to get Best Actor. I could see it happening because, my God, Saoirse Ronan is, I think, my favorite young actress. I love her ability. I love her whenever I've seen her be interviewed anywhere. I mean, I think she's a tremendous talent. Just seems like an overall great person. And Chalamet is an amazing look. I'm pulling for Chalamet to win Best Actor this year for Dune as Paul Atreides, because I read that script and I cannot wait. And I don't know what Saoirse Ronan has going on this year, but hopefully I'd love to see them both get nominated and win.
Maybe they win it in the same movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Maybe next year, maybe a couple of years in the same movie together. Just saying, the next Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan.
Could be. Why don't they remake Sleepless in Seattle?
There you go. All right. Next up here, 50 Shades also writes, congrats on the new chair, John Mazel Tov. Yes, for those of you who were asking all the time, it's happened. I got the new chair, and I got to tell you, I can't show it off completely here. Fact checker Jonathan actually ran out and got it for me. And I love it. I at first I looked at it, I'm like, that doesn't look like it's that great. And then I sat in it, and this is so much better than that chair I've been using the last number of years. It was just awful and terrible. So thank you for noticing. And yes, it is a much better chair. All right, let's see here. Josh Bing writes, hey, John, just wanted to let you know I'm currently working on my first short film as part of my senior project for college. I like how we're both tackling projects at the same time. I'm still in pre-production for a few weeks, but immensely enjoying it. Auditions begin in a week for it. I'm always reminded of how you always said, just do the thing, and you're doing more than most. Gotta get it done. I love it, though, and just wanted to say thanks. You're a big inspiration to me and how I see and dissect film. Well, first of all, Josh, that is awesome. And it's always great. I love hearing stories about people who stop talking about wanting to do something and actually do something, because far too many people are far too lazy to do it. So the fact that you're tackling this for a school project makes it even more cool. Best of luck on it. I hope you have a great time doing it. Here's my best piece of advice right now, though. Understand, it's probably not going to be great. And that's okay. And if it is great, bonus. Look at it as a learning experience that you're going to learn as you do this. So don't worry about it if you don't make the next Academy Award winner with this thing. Just look at it as a learning experience. Get going on that. And that is awesome, Josh. Best of luck to you. I'm really proud to hear you're doing that. So that is great. Good luck, man. All right. Stubble McShave writes, John, I kind of missed having a host at the Oscars. I did too. That made me think of what current or historical movie personality who never got to host the Oscars that I'd like to have seen hosted. My pick would be Mel Brooks in the 70s or 80s. What's your pick? I don't know that I have a pick. I don't know that I would go back in time and do a pick for something. I mean, well, listen, I'll tell you what, and obviously this doesn't work today, Rob. This clearly doesn't work today. But there was a couple of years that I thought Kevin Spacey would make a great Oscar host. There were a couple of years. He's a song and dance man. He's a Hollywood historian. That clearly would not fly anymore. So I take that one off the list. I mean, I'd like to see Hugh Jackman's already hosted it, but I think he should host it again. He did a great job hosting it. I think. I don't know. There's a lot of people. Do you have anybody that stands out into your head, Rob, that's never hosted the Oscars, past or present, that you think would be good at doing something like that?
James Spader.
Really?
I want James Spader to host the Oscars. How about that? I have great big love for James Spader. And you know what? In the 80s, whether he was playing Dutra in The New Kids or a dickhead in Pretty in Pink, or he was in Jack's Back, or he played Rip the drug dealer and with Robert Downey Jr. in Less Than Zero. I think he's Natalie dressed. He'll come out wearing a fedora, a scarf. He'll be in a black tie out. I think he could kill it as host for the Oscars.
Man, I think if he came out and did that just as Raymond Reddington, like if he just hosted the Oscars as Raymond Reddington.
Right? Come on, man.
I think I might be able to get on board with that, Rob. You almost got me there. You almost got me on board with you on that one. All right, 50 Shades writes, 1 or 2, just trying to fix a mistake I made on open mic last week. What I meant was, do you think Birds of Prey box office proves to Warner Brothers that not every comic book movie is an automatic hit? Forgot to write in the Warner Brothers part, meaning that just because Joker made $1 billion doesn't mean that any comic book movie you put an R rating on is going to be a hit. Well, like I said, thanks for clarifying that, 50 Shades. Like I said, though, in response to that, much like Hollywood as a whole, Rob, there were a lot of R-rated comic book movies, and a lot of them did not work financially. A lot of them bombed brutally. But even specifically, Warner Brothers has dipped their toe into R-rated comic book movie material before. I think Watchmen is a great example. That they made rated R, and they did not reap big financial benefits. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of stories that go around that say what happened with what happened with Watchmen ultimately made Warner Brothers cancel another film they were looking at doing R-rated. And so I would say that I think Warner Brothers already knows. I think right now they seem to be in this like trend that there's somebody in the Warner Brothers executive offices telling all the other executives, the kiddies love R, everything should be R. Yeah, I do think there's some idiot running around Warner Brothers doing that. But I think there are also going to be veterans at Warner Brothers who remember when they've done R-rated comic book films and it didn't quite work. I don't know, Rob, do you think Warner Brothers has forgotten that, or do you think that's something they need to remember?
Well, no, I think, wasn't 300 R? 300 is based on Frank Miller's comic. And I think the reason Watchmen, I don't think a rating necessarily. They used to think that the R rating would limit an audience. So an R-rated movie, if they thought it would have wide appeal to younger people, it wouldn't do as well. But I think that has been proven not to be true. And in the comic book arena, movies like Deadpool and Logan prove that. I think it really just, it's not so much about the rating, John, as it is about the film. In the case of Watchmen, I don't think Watchmen worked and made as much money because the material is really dense. And a lot of the audience, it's not exactly the crowd-pleasing, delicious entertainment that, say, Deadpool is, or even Logan, or even something like The Matrix. I don't know if was The Matrix rated R? Maybe it wasn't.
I think it was. It might have been.
Yeah. I mean, it's not based on a comic book, but I really think it really comes down to the film itself. And Suicide Squad worked because people, even though I thought it was a hot mess, you thought it was a hot mess, it's like a confection. It might not have been a great movie, but a lot of people had fun watching it. And I think when it comes right down to the rating, it's really about the movie more so than the rating itself. Deadpool was irresistible. It was R-rated. It was irresistible. Younger fans figured out ways to get in. They conned their parents or friends, or people just didn't care and let them in. But I think that the rating, it has no bearing on whether a movie is successful or not. The movie itself lives or dies by its own content. And I don't think the rating has any bearing on that.
I think the lesson that I think Hollywood needs to learn here is this. R ratings don't work, and R ratings don't not work. I think the lesson that we've been learning from the box office is that R ratings can work.
Yes.
If you've got a movie that is inherently rated R, you don't have to be automatically turned off from that, because R-rated movies can work. There's proof for that. But just slapping an R rating on something does not automatically mean it's going to work. We've seen plenty of precedent for that too. So I think the lesson here is R ratings can work. They can work in the right situation. 50 Shades writes, I looked it up. Ben-Hur is the third movie that won 11 Oscars, nominated for 12. Hopefully you won't forget. See, I've mentioned that before many times, but then sometimes when I'm talking about the three movies that won more Oscars than any other, that of course is Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Titanic, and Ben-Hur, have all won 11. No film has ever won more than those, but I often freeze on the Ben-Hur one, which I shouldn't because I love that film. Anyway, Matt McClure writes, my problem with Ezra's Flash appearing in Crisis and getting his name Flash from Grant's Flash is it makes the timeline messy. Are we to believe that in the time from Batman vs. Superman to Crisis, 2016 to 2020, that Barry hasn't matured, aged, or come up with the name yet? Here's the thing, Matt. None of it mattered. Don't think for a second that just because they let this quick little utterly empty and meaningless cameo of Ezra Miller in The Crisis on Infinite. As fun as it was to see him pop up, it was ultimately empty and completely meaningless. Don't think that that has any repercussions on anything. It doesn't. The movies are going to go on like that never happened. So don't worry about it. Don't try to apply logic to anything that happened in Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it's just like somebody wrote me the other day, Rob, and asked, so when Lucifer season 5 comes up, is he going to mention John Constantine and working with John? It's like, no, just because they did that in Crisis for their little wink and Easter egg thing, it's not going to have any ramifications on anything else. I don't believe. Or Rob, maybe you see it different. What do you think about that?
No, I look, everything that happened in Crisis, it was all winks and nods and fun and all that. I don't think that there's going to be like these kinds of lasting ramifications in terms of that particular, in terms of Ezra Miller. I don't think it's going to change anything. I don't think they're not going to do another whole episode about it. Like, let me talk about this Flash I met from a Flash of two worlds. I mean, I met this guy, he looked just like me, but he wasn't even called the Flash. I look, and who knows? It's not like every world existed in the exact same time frame as our world. You don't know. Yeah. You don't know where it's not just time, it's space time and the continuum, and who knows.
Although Ezra's Flash did mention Cyborg. What's his real first name? What's Cyborg's first name again? Victor. I told Victor this was possible. I mean, so there was a reference to that, but again, I think that was just for fun. It was a wink and a nod. Like, for instance, just because they come across Tom Welling's Superman, now powerless, that doesn't mean the real future of that Smallville Superman was sometime down the road he gives up his powers. It doesn't mean that at all. It was all just for it, and I wouldn't lose any sleep over it at all. All right, last question we're going to do here with Rob still with us, because we got to let him go to do some stuff he needs to do. 50 Shades writes, a viewer recently suggested Peter Pan as a villain. He mentioned Once Upon a Time, which you said you were interested in. I recommend you watch that part of the show. It's only 11 episodes, and you don't really need to know much about the show to enjoy it. I know jumping into a new show halfway through can be jarring. Yeah, I never do that, and I probably never will. But that part actually feels like a standalone part of the show. If you are a fan of Peter Pan and a fan of the concept, it might be worth your time. He also then writes in, P.S. if you've read the book, Peter Pan is actually a very bad guy, maybe even worse than Hook. Well, I don't know that he is like the villain of the story, but the thing is, a lot of people forget this, Rob. In the Peter Pan book is dark and has some real messed up stuff that happens in that book. It ain't the Disney incarnation that you may remember. So, Rob, somebody the other day mentioned it'd be neat seeing kind of a what if kind of movie made about Peter Pan, where Peter Pan is the villain and Hook was just this, fun-loving pirate in Neverland, just kind of doing his thing when this evil kid started showing up and screwing around. I don't know. What would you think about an idea like that?
Look, I love any time you turn the Peter Pan mythos on their ear. Alan Moore, who did Watchmen, did a comic series called Lost Girls instead of Lost Boys that deals, Wendy is one of the characters in there. And I don't necessarily think I could recommend it to our under 21 audience, but definitely it's an interesting take. And I love that idea. I love switching, changing mythology and flipping it on its ear. I think it's a great idea. Peter Pan and the Lost Boys come and wreck shop, destroy the status quo, become, they're like communist revolutionaries in 1918 Russia, changing the way everything went. And I love stories like that. So I'm a big advocate of doing stuff like that. So sure.
All right, Rob, for now, that will do it for our time with you. We're going to let you get on with your day and the stuff that you're doing. In the meantime, though, dude, where can people follow you and all your goodness online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram, my own name, Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
All right, dude, and we will, of course, see you again tomorrow. Thanks for being here, man, and we will talk to you later.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, man. Guys, that was Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Make sure you're following him on all social media platforms. Listen, we got about another 20 minutes left, so let's keep on going through your questions here. Jay Bling writes, Billie Eilish gave an interview where she said that she was given the first scene from the script for No Time to Die, an inspiration for her theme song. We were actually just talking about that a little bit earlier. So you're absolutely right, Jay Bling. She absolutely did mention that, and that is something we addressed a little bit earlier in the show. But good on you for pointing that out. All right, Angela Dashner writes, Part 1. I had to spend my Saturday recovering from an MCL. Oh, that's no fun. An MCL injury in my knee, so I had to spend the day both elevating and icing. Don't remember when I had a day with nothing to do. Started with The Two Towers, Shakespeare in Love, Moulin Rouge, Contagion. Oh, God, I love that. Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, Red 1 and 2, Husband's Fun Movie, then ended with John Wick 1, 2, and 3. Haven't done this ever, being trapped recovering. But that is one of the great things, right? Like, I've always found, Angela, that the silver lining to getting sick, or the silver lining to, whatever the circumstances are that leave you with a couple of days that you really can't do anything, because what you're going to do, you can't do, or for personal reasons, you can't do it, whatever. The silver lining, though, in the midst of that type of crappy situation, and like MCL injuries, no fun, but is the fact that you do at least get a chance to get caught up on the stuff you've been wanting to watch, or revisit things that you've really wanted to revisit and haven't had a chance to do. So listen, I hope your recovery is going well. That sounds like no fun whatsoever. But hey, at least you and your husband are getting a chance to hang out and watch some of these things again, because that actually sounds like a pretty good time, even if your leg's killing you while you're doing it. So best of luck on your recovery. And I hope you get a chance to get through a couple more classics at the same time. Thanks for sharing that, Angela, and all of our best wishes to your recovery on that. All right. Let's see here. That was part 2. That was another part 2. Angela writes, so if you had a day when you had to watch movies to pass the time while recovering, what would you and Rob watch? My husband Rob and I had a lot of fun together watching movies all day. So if I had here's what I would do. Mine would be a little bit different, because I do spend a lot of my time watching movies and rewatching movies that I really enjoy. I do make sure I make a concerted effort to do that. So if I had, let's say I was knocked on my ass for 4 days, what I would most likely use that time for myself, because I do spend a lot of time watching all the movies that I can and rewatching some of my favorites, I tend to use that time to dive into some binge sessions on shows that I've always wanted to watch but never gotten around to. Right? So, for instance, I'm trying to think of a show, maybe BoJack Horseman. BoJack Horseman is a show everybody's been telling me to check out. So maybe if I was knocked on my ass for a few days, I might go, you know what? One of the things I'm going to knock out here, I'm going to binge BoJack Horseman and get through that. So I would probably personally lean towards binging some television series rather than movies, because I already do a very good job keeping up with my movies, and particularly rewatching the movies that I love so much. So I would go the television route, Angela. And by the way, thank you for the size of that tip. I just noticed that. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level. And because you did do one that was $50 or more, we are going to answer this again in its own standalone video in the next week or two. Keep your eyes open for it, and we'll get around to that. Thanks again, Angela. And again, speedy recovery. All right. Sam O'Neill writes, watched 6 Underground last night, despite what I've heard of it, and I really liked it. I also really liked Ryan's selfless plug of his gin, self-serving plug of his gin in the movie in a scene at the bar. Continued to watch Detective Pikachu for a third time, and I still love it. Yeah, I gotta say, Sam, first of all, I'm thrilled that you enjoyed it. I'm not quite on the same page. Despite the fact that 6 Underground starts great, that whole opening scene is fabulous. With the caper that goes south. That's what they start with the street running, the race and the chase through the streets and all that. It's awesome. And I love Ryan Reynolds in the movie, because I love Ryan Reynolds. But overall, it did not work for me. I mean, the flaws in the movie to me started to become more and more apparent. By the way, I'm gonna lose the headphones here since Rob's not here anymore. The flaws in the movie started to become more and more apparent to me the deeper we got into the movie, and I really didn't like that much. Pikachu is another one that I wish I liked more. It certainly had some great elements, and again, Ryan Reynolds doing the voice of Pikachu is perfection, but it just wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be, because I thought the trailers looked amazing. You guys remember, I was so excited for Detective Pikachu. didn't quite do it for me. My wife liked it more than I did, but she loves Pokemon. So I went to go see it twice, and yeah, it didn't quite work for me. But I'm glad you loved it, Sam. That's the important thing. All right, Cloud9 writes, after Pikachu and Sonic, Nintendo/Sega should do a universe. No, I disagree. They own all those Smash Brothers characters. Make movies with them. No, I think we've seen a lot of proof that just randomly doing stuff like that for no purpose, it just ends up being a jarbled mess. I think the best thing to do is just focus on individual stuff. I think that's the best thing to do. When you're describing Cloud9, to me sounds like a better idea for a 10-minute YouTube video than it does for an actual full movie. I just think that would just be a jarbled mess. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure you'd probably find a lot of people, though, Cloud9, that love that idea. I'm sure there are a lot of people that would love that idea. To me, I think the way they're doing things is probably the right way to go. Nosferatu writes, nice game, pretty boy. I know that's a Seinfeld reference. Where was it in Seinfeld? I know that's a Seinfeld reference. It's Newman. That's right. That's the Newman quote from Seinfeld. I remember that. All right. 50 Shades of Geek writes, Sonic making $57 million proves that studios should start listening to the mainstream audience. Oh, that's stupid. No. This is what happens when you listen to fans. No, it doesn't. Because here's the thing. There's no evidence here that suggests this movie would have made 1 cent less. There's no evidence to suggest, look, somebody asked me on my show, you guys remember this. Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, if Sonic bombs, remember? If Sonic flops, do you think that proves that studios should never listen to fans? And I said then what I will say again now. I said, if Sonic flops, and I don't think it will, but if Sonic flops, it will have nothing to do with the design change. Let's say Sonic opened up to $20 million. That will have nothing to do with the fact that they changed the design. None. I said at the time, not $1 can be blamed on the design change if it flops. I said the equal and opposite is true. I believe if the film does really well, which it's done modestly well, I don't think you can attribute that to the design change. The design didn't make the movie any better or any worse. I liked the movie. The parts that I liked about the movie, I would have liked regardless of what Sonic looked like. Because frankly, the visual effects in this movie are not very good. But the things that I liked and really enjoyed about the film, it was still the same dialogue, same action, same movement, everything was the same. It's just that the character would have looked a little different. Wouldn't have changed how much I liked or didn't like the movie. Not one iota. So I know there are a lot of people that are going to try to pretend like this is what saved it from flopping. I really don't agree. I don't think there's any proof here that suggests that this movie would have opened with $1 more or $1 less if they hadn't changed. So everybody will say that they know, but there's really no empirical evidence to suggest one way or the other. And again, I go back to what I said weeks ago. I said if it flops, it didn't flop because they changed design. If it succeeds, it's not going to succeed because they changed design. If it flops, it's because it's a bad movie. If it succeeds, it's going to be because they made a decent movie. And I'll tell you what, I think Sonic was a much better movie than I thought it was going to be. It was a much better movie than I still don't love it. I still don't think it's a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. I still don't think it's that good. But considering how garbage I thought the movie was going to be, and I thought it was just going to be terrible, it's not. It's not. Even if you're not a child and even if you're not a hardcore Sonic fan, there's things in this movie to enjoy. And I'm living proof of that. You know, I am not the targeted audience for this movie. And I walked out going, you know what? That wasn't that bad. It's not great, but it's not that bad. Jim Carrey was great. There were some good emotional moments. There were some good laughs. There was also a lot of cringy stuff in it. Yeah. But there was a lot more good stuff in this movie than I thought there would have been. And it was more enjoyable, infinitely more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be. And this, guys, is a lesson, again, as to why it's totally fine to have your expectations, whether they're super high or super low. But you got to take those expectations when you go into a movie theater and leave them at the door. And then just judge the movie on its own merits. Because I thought this movie was going to be absolute crap. I thought this movie was going to be absolute crap. And you know what? I walked out going, that wasn't that bad. And there's some really good stuff in it. And that's the strength of the movie. Plus, changing release dates from November to February was a big key in that. That was a huge key in that. But anyway, that's just my take on things. All right, Sully writes, The bat symbol looks like it's a gun cut in half. Yeah, many people have pointed that out. And from the neck up, he kind of looks like the Netflix Daredevil. But overall, I'm digging it. See, that's the thing. People keep forgetting that when Daredevil first got revealed, a lot of people said, wow, it looks like a Batman cowl. But now that Daredevil is out, they're saying, wow, it looks like a Daredevil cowl. It is what it is. It is what it is. But a lot of people saw have made that observation about the bat symbol, and that very well could be it. I mean, it's pretty cool if it is, actually. Hector Jeter writes, hey, John, if you were on death row and had to watch one last movie while eating one last meal, what would it be? I would have homemade country fried steak and mashed potatoes whole while watching Airplane so I can die laughing. Oh, that's easy for me. If I knew I had one more movie to watch before going out, it's Return of the Jedi. Absolutely Return of the Jedi while eating my nonna's veal parmesan. My Italian grandmother eating her veal parmesan. That is my number one all-time favorite dish. I have never enjoyed a plate of food as much as I enjoy my Italian grandmother's veal parmesan. It's the best thing in the world. So, Return of the Jedi while eating veal parm. My grandmother's veal parm, to be specific. Hector Jeter writes, hey, John, not asking which scene was better, but which scene was more jaw-dropping for you at the first viewing? Gandalf riding Dine with Éomer and the Rohirrim army down Helm's Deep, or King Theoden leading his army towards Pelennor Fields? Death. It's the Theoden one. Yeah, don't get me wrong. They're both stunning. Both stunning, wonderful scenes. But because you got to take everything into account with it, the cinematography of it, which characters are involved, the dialogue that's being spoken, and King Theoden doing his whole speech, right? It's just, oh God, I'm getting chills again, getting goosebumps again, hair on my arm standing up again. There you go. Christian's Reviews writes, can Elastigirl from The Incredibles experience pain of childbirth? I'm legitimately curious. My guess would be no, but then again, having a baby would be a massively different thing for your biology to adapt to. So you know what? I'm going to say, even though not traditionally the way we normally think of it, I'm going to think it was probably still uncomfortable for her. I don't know how or why, and I'm not going to try to explain it biologically, but I'm going to guess that maybe it was still uncomfortable for her. It's actually a rather interesting question. Let's see here. Ryan Lohner writes, just found a childhood favorite on Disney Plus that no one seems to remember these days, Shipwrecked, a Norwegian film with Gabriel Byrne that's basically Master and Commander, Swiss Family Robinson slammed together. It really holds up. Why does that sound familiar? Hold on a second. Let me pull this up. Hold on a second. Shipwrecked, IMDb. It says from 1990. Oh, you know what? I remember this film. I did not see it. I do not believe, although I maybe have seen it and didn't remember it, but I don't believe I've seen this. By the way, Gabriel Byrne, that guy should be a major star in big movies every year. This dude's awesome. Anyway, but I don't think I actually got around to watching it. I love your description of it, though, Ryan. That kind of gets me stoked to see it. It's Master and Commander swapped with Swiss Family Robinson. That actually sounds pretty appealing to me. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, man. Julie Say Good One writes, not that it's saying much, but at least Sonic is better than that god-awful Mario's. It definitely is better than that Mario Brothers movie back in the 80s and early 90s. That movie truly was an abomination in the sight of the Lord, and lucky it didn't kill the game genre as a whole. Well, it killed it for a while. And you know what? Honestly, that's the movie that has stopped Nintendo from really embracing and doing video game movies. I mean, people have wanted a Link movie for the longest time. People have wanted more Mario movies for the longest time, but that was a painful lesson for them to learn. And I don't know that they've ever gotten over it, Julius. All right, Julius also writes, at least the Sonic movie is better than Mario Brothers. Yeah, we just kind of, that's right. We went through that already. Hector Jeter writes, I see in your eyes the same fear. Oh, this is Strider. The same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, but not this day. This day we fight by all that you hold dear. On this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West. And everybody draws swords. Of course, that's not Theoden or Gandalf's big charge. That was Strider's big charge at the end of Return of the King. Great moment. Not quite as good as the Theoden moment, I don't think, but that is another one of the great speeches from Lord of the Rings. Slim Trav writes, glad Sonic did well. Paramount needed a win. Oh, God, did they need a win. Holy crap, they needed a win. Now, it'll be interesting to see what kind of legs the movie has. No, Sonic, no pun intended. But because I don't know. I'm not saying it will, and I'm not saying it won't. I'm completely in the middle on this. I don't know what it's going to do. But I know everybody who was excited about Sonic went out to see it. So how will it do long term? Will people go, wow, Campea thought it was going to be crap, and he said it actually isn't all that bad. Maybe we should go see it. Maybe there'll be a bunch of people like that. Or maybe the people who were going to see it all went to see it opening weekend, and the people who weren't just aren't. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, though. I hope it does well. I mean, I always like it when a movie exceeds my expectations. Granted, my expectations for Sonic were real low, but it's always nice when you go into a movie and it's better than you thought it would be. And I always like to see movies be rewarded for that. And I hope it continues to do well. But again, it's going to be really interesting to see how it does next weekend, so let's keep our eyes open for it. All right, Nicholas Priera writes, over under 50% chance that some of the X-Men will be introduced in the next Deadpool. Could it be the only way to get the PG-13 pill accepted for this film? I don't know that fans are going to accept a PG-13 for a Deadpool movie. I think they would have before Ryan Reynolds did his R-rated ones, but today I don't know that they would, now that we are used to this R-rated Deadpool. So I don't see them using the X-Men I don't see them using Deadpool to introduce the X-Men. I don't think that's the way they'll go. I'm not saying they won't, and I have no insider information, but my guess is no, they won't introduce the X-Men that way. Because why would you introduce the X-Men in a world like Deadpool when I don't think they're going to cross Deadpool over much with the MCU, but they do want the X-Men to cross? So I don't know. It would seem like an odd choice. Maybe it is what they're going to do. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying I don't think they will, but it's going to be interesting to see how they approach that. Nicholas Piera writes, what would Feige do with him if he doesn't introduce him in the MCU, knowing that the mutants of his 2 Fox films will probably never appear again? Let me try this again. What do you think, what could Feige do with him, Deadpool, if he doesn't introduce him in the MCU, knowing that the mutants of his 2 Fox films will probably never appear again? Oh, I don't know. I think that's a lot of what they're trying to figure out right now. I think what do we do with the X-Men and what do we do with Deadpool are 2 of the biggest questions. I don't think what do we do with Fantastic Four is a question to Kevin Feige. I think Kevin Feige has wanted to do something with the Fantastic Four since he was a kid. So I think he's probably already got that part figured out. The one that I still think is making people over at Disney pull their hair out is how do we bring the X-Men into this? What do we do with them? And what do we do with Deadpool? We know we're doing something. We just don't know what yet. And maybe they have it figured out now. Maybe they don't. But what Kevin does with him, I don't know. Again, my personal preference is that they leave Deadpool outside of the MCU and just continue to let Ryan Reynolds and the 2 writer dudes who've been working with Ryan Reynolds on this the whole time, and they've done a great job. Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, I think. Just let these 2 guys continue to write and make their own Deadpool movies and let Deadpool just stand on his own. That's what I really hope Kevin does. Just look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Up until Joker, Deadpool was the 2 highest R-rated grossing films of all time. It's working. Let him stay outside of it. Let him do a few more jokes to the MCU. But what they decide to do, I don't know. I trust Kevin Feige, so whatever he does, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. But I kind of hope it's going to be let Deadpool stay outside of the MCU so he can really flex his muscles. That's my hope, but we'll see what happens. All right. Quinn Allfather writes, just saw Dark Phoenix, 10 out of 10 for me. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Listen, I don't think Dark Phoenix was as bad as a lot of people made it out to be. It's not great. Don't get me wrong. In my opinion, it's not great. But if you watched it and loved it, that's awesome. And if it's a 10 out of 10 for you, then it's a 10 out of 10 for you. And that's excellent. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I said, I thought it was much better than a lot of other people thought it was. So I'm glad you liked it. Phil Corvelli writes, if you were forced to live out the story arc of any villain in film, who would you pick and why? Ooh, if I could live out the story arc of any villain. I don't know. Off the top, that's not something I carry around off the top of my head. It would probably be a villain that wins at the end. So, because I don't want my story to end. Tell you what, I'll go with the kid from, what was the name of that little Superman movie James Gunn just produced? Damn it, what was the name of that movie? Hey guys in the chat board, what was the name of that movie? What was the name of that movie? I cannot. Brightburn. Thank you, Omar 94. 94. Brightburn. I be the kid in Brightburn because he wins. So that's not that I want bad guys to win, but if I had to be one and I had to live it out, I'm going with the kid in Brightburn. There we go. That's the one I want. All right. I don't want to be Thanos and get killed twice. I don't want that to happen. All right. Suthius writes, even the Disney parks closed. The virus is no joke. Oh, yeah, talking about what's going on in China. Yeah, they're taking it very, very seriously. And it's good that they are because, listen, as much as it's spreading, imagine how badly it would have spread if China didn't lock things down. I mean, it could be 10 times worse than it is today. So it makes sense. R. Lee writes, where'd R. Lee go? There he is. R. Lee writes, Fantasy Island, 14 million domestic, 21 million worldwide this weekend. I know it's not profitable yet, but is that a good start for a $7 million budgeted film? Yeah, it's not bad. When you can open higher than what your production budget alone was, and by the way, they didn't spend a lot of money on marketing this film. I'm going to guess maybe 20 million, maybe 20 million, maybe even 15. So if they made, let's say for argument's sake that they spent 15 million in marketing Fantasy Island, and that might be generous. This isn't a $75-100 million marketing campaign. This was tiny. So let's for argument's sake say they spent 15 million. Okay, now let's say they spent 8 million making it. That's 23 million. So you need to make 23 million to break even. That means roughly the movie worldwide needs to make about 35-36 million, because then you got to account for the theaters keeping a certain chunk. So you got to figure the movie's got to make 35, 36, 37 million dollars worldwide. If you've already made 21 worldwide and you're well over half on your way to being profitable, they could actually be okay. I mean, it's weird to think about that, but they could actually be okay. And again, it is a much bigger opening than I was anticipating. All right, Tanny Slater writes, at this pace, Tom Holland may be an older Nathan Drake to be... Yeah, that's right. For everybody complaining that they don't want a young Nathan Drake, at the pace they're making this movie and all the delays they're having, maybe he'll be an older Nathan Drake by the time he gets around. That's a good observation, Tanny. Well said. All right, Josh J writes, a press junked is never a time to die. A press junked is never a time to die. I'm not quite sure what that's from. It's a good observation, though. Initial D's writes, Parasite series coming to HBO. Yes, it is, with Tilda Swinton announced so far. Do you think it'll be the same story and beats from the movie? I'm excited either way because Bong is adapting it. Yeah, he's not going to direct it, but he is going to be one of the guys adapting it. I think it'll probably, this is my guess, and I have no insider information on this initial, is that I think it'll follow, let me rephrase. I think it'll be very similar to the story that we got in the movie with its own liberties. So I think there will be, I'm guessing, and this is just a guess, it'll in basic premise follow the same story with some very distinctive and important differences that make it stand out as different from the movie itself. So that's my guess. And I'm not going to get excited about it. Like if John Boone-Ho was going to be directing the whole thing, then fine. All right, then fine. But he's not. So, I mean, if it's not directed by Bong Joon-ho, then how excited can I be? I'm in the middle of the road. So I'm going to wait to see how it starts to evolve, and then I'll get excited. But for now, I'm kind of just interested. I'm interested right now, but not quite excited yet. Douglas Armstrong writes, with Sonic's success, do you think we will get more amazing video game movies like Metroid? Also, do you think we will get a Sega Sonic Universe, Tales? I think a sequel is definitely in the works. I think a sequel definitely gets done. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear within the next week that they've greenlit a sequel. Now, it's important to keep in mind they have not yet broken even. All right? They're not even halfway to breaking even yet. So keep that in mind. Do keep that in mind. Sonic has not made money yet. They haven't even come halfway to making money yet. But it's a good start. It's a good start. But I wouldn't be surprised, again, if within the next week we don't get an announcement saying they've greenlit Sonic 2. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I wouldn't blame them either. Take advantage of the momentum of the positive buzz right now. Why not? Wild Phantom 1 writes, Parasite opened in the UK and is headed for over 12 million. US equivalent would be 100 million. No. US equivalent would not be 100 million. Maybe 10 million? Anyway. How much money was missed releasing it to video before the Oscars? But that was, I don't know. I mean, the fact of the matter is it came out a while ago. It came out a while ago. I saw it on the same week. I saw it on the same night that I saw Jojo Rabbit. So that was a while ago. So I don't know. And listen, the fact of the matter is it jumped back up into the top 10 on the box office chart. So I don't know that it got hurt very much at all. It seems like, at least on its surface, it's a good question to ask, Wild Phantom, but it seems like on its surface, like the strategy, whatever the strategy was, seems to have paid off. So we'll see as we move forward. All right, Ryan DG, and we're just going to rush through the last couple ones here, guys. Ryan DG writes, was Quantum of Solace the only Bond film with no love scene? I could be wrong. Ooh. That's a good question. Wasn't there a love scene? Hold on a second. Oh, I wish Rob was still here because he's a much bigger Bond fan than me. He would be the best one. That is a fascinating question, Ryan. I'm going to try to remember to bring that question up again tomorrow because I'd be curious to see what Rob would say because I think that's a fascinating question. I'm not the guy to answer it, but I'd love to hear Rob's take on that. All right, Paul Sanchez writes, I know you hate when studios do it, but do you think a Harley movie could benefit from doing a re-release with some extra features and a PG-13 rating? No, not really. I don't know that they would make up the difference because then you'd have to do a whole new marketing campaign for it. It's not like this has been a big blockbuster for them. So honestly, if there was any benefit to it, I think it would be minimal, and all it would do is piss a lot of people off, including me, because I hate it when studios do. You're right. I hate it when studios do that, but I really don't see a lot of benefit. Because it's going to cost you money to put it back into theaters. You got to get the theaters to agree to even put it on screens again. So I don't know. Matt McClure writes, final question of the day, guys. Matt writes, just wanted to clarify my yesterday's comment on Ezra's Flash getting his name. The writer of the Flash movie made the comment recently that the scene factors into their Flash movie script, and so it's not just a throwaway scene where I don't believe that for a second. I'm not saying I don't believe you, Matt. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm saying I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that in the least. Not a second. And listen, maybe we'll come to a point where it does prove out. Great. If it does, wonderful. But I don't believe that for a second. Not for the slightest second do I believe that. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. First of all, thank you for making this show and this community a part of your day. It's awesome that you do that. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. He will, of course, be back again tomorrow. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here, thank you very much for that. Don't forget, guys, if you want to get your questions in early for tomorrow's show, you can send them in early anytime you want by going to that link. Again, the link is in the top line of the description of this video. You can also see it right here, but it's right there in the description of the video. You can click on that and get your question in early to be one of the first questions answered tomorrow. All right, guys. That will do it for us for now. Thank you so much for being here, guys. It is always awesome having the international friends here as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. We will, of course, see you again tomorrow, guys. That'll do it for now. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.